I said I'd be back today. I didn't expect to be this quickly. However, I'm here to talk about James Ward Prowse. It appears that West Ham United have had a bid accepted by Southampton for the midfielder, £27 million plus £3 million in add-ons. It's ordinarily I'd be sitting here, I'd be sort of cock a hoop. I'd be quite pleased about West Ham announcing the signing of a new player. It has to be sort of tinged and sort of tarnished, if you like, by the news this morning that Lucas Paqueta is of serious interest to Manchester City. There's been a little update since I did my video earlier this morning on the Paqueta one. I'll just tell you about that before we get to James Ward Prowse. And that is because there is an £85 million release clause in Lucas Paqueta's contract. Now, the interesting thing is that doesn't activate until next year. So as of next year, anybody can bid for Lucas Paqueta and they get him as long as they pay £85 million, which sort of makes sense why that would be the club's valuation. Now, as I understand it, this clause was not inserted in there by the club. It was inserted in there by Lucas Paqueta and his representatives. And it was a way of him being able to get out of West Ham if he did well. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. This sort of deal is commonplace, particularly on the continent. But I think what it does indicate is that Paqueta was certainly willing to play a couple of seasons at West Ham. And if you just take away the brand of football for a moment on it, I do think what I said in the video earlier was true. I do believe it's been a successful transfer for Lucas Paqueta. He's obviously kept his place in the Brazilian team. He's established himself as one of the Premier League's better players. And he won a European trophy. So I think, he would deem it to be a successful transfer. But you can only wonder what he thinks seeing players like Declan Rice leave, seeing Scamacca leave. This is something that I didn't really talk about. I know I said I'll talk about James Ward Prowse. I'll get onto that in just a second. The one partnership I thought showed promise last season, and it was early on. There was a little run of games where Lucas Paqueta and Gianluca Scamacca looked like they had an understanding, a football understanding, and I thought that was going to develop into something. So I can only imagine that possibly Paqueta, who didn't really have an understanding with Mikel Antonio, or Danny Ings, it has to be said, would probably be quite disappointed about Scamacca leaving. So I sort of get it, if Paqueta wants to leave, but I just want to reiterate, he would like to leave, apparently. And this is just the news that we're getting, but he's not going to throw a strop. So, you can't really ask for much more than that, really, can you? I totally get it and understand why you want to join Man City. Right, on to James Ward Prowse, because, it's hard to separate this from the other stuff, and I'm not impervious to what people are saying, which is, look, it looks like we're getting rid of, a bunch of younger players and sort of replacing them with an old guard, as it were. And I sort of get that. I think the one thing I would say about James Ward Prowse here is that James Ward Prowse does want to play for West Ham. And you know what? At a time when it seems there are a hell of a lot of players that don't want to play for West Ham, that sort of does mean something to me. But there's a whole load of other stuff going to be going on with West Ham today. That there really is. Let's just drill down into this whole James Ward Prowse move and what it means for West Ham. Before I do, if what you want to do is to keep up to date with all the latest West Ham news, you can do a lot worse than download the OneFootball app, which you can download by clicking the link below. They're kindly sponsoring this video. There's a QR code somewhere up there. I haven't edited it into the video quite yet. The OneFootball app's your one-stop shop for all your West Ham news, because what you do is at the point where you download it, it asks you which team you support. You say West Ham, and what you can do is actually you can filter out all the other rubbish that you don't want to know about, and it will just give you the West Ham news stories. And today is a really, really good day to download this app, it has to be said, because there's going to be a ton of West Ham news stories on the OneFootball app. It just goes around the internet and all around the newspapers, cherry picking all the West Ham themes and just chucks them straight at your phone in the form of a notification. Best of all, the OneFootball app is free. Go and check it out. Use the link below if you would, please. If you just go and generically search for it, then they don't know you've come from Hammers Chat. If you use the link below, they know you've come from Hammers Chat, and it works out really well for us, and we greatly appreciate it. James Ward Prowse, right. Why are we signing him? Well, we're signing him because, I guess, primarily because of his set pieces. I think he's industrious. I think he obviously works really hard. I think David Moyes can certainly trust him as a footballer. There's little doubt about that. And he's a captain. He's a captain of Southampton. And I think certainly by signing this player, it gives us one more leader in the group. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever heard James Ward Prowse interviewed before. He interviews really well. He's clearly a decent character, a decent personality to have around, and he's a decent Premier League player. I know he got relegated, but you know what? West Ham have been relegated before with plenty of good players in their team. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad player, and I think he is a decent player, and I think he'll play well for West Ham. I think it's quite obvious who's behind this particular transfer, and it's going to be David Moyes, which sort of tells you everything you want to know, really. All these stories about, about whether David Moyes... I even heard them as recently as yesterday. David Moyes is going to be sacked this week. Clearly not. Clearly not. If David Moyes gets sacked this week, we wouldn't be signing James Ward Prowse and Harry Maguire, which we'll deal with later in a video later on, because I think we're gonna have some form of official announcement from either an agent from Manchester United or indeed West Ham United later on, so we'll deal with that then. But you can certainly see that James Ward Prowse is going to be that guy that David Moyes is going to want to bring in. David Moyes wants players that he can trust, so just forget about the set pieces for a second. Is James Ward Prowse going to hold the positions on a football pitch that David Moyes wants when David Moyes is asking his team to defend? The answer is yes. He's going to do exactly as he's told. And David Moyes loves that sort of stuff. That's one of the reasons he loves Thomas Souček. For all Thomas Souček's disgruntlement and, maybe his annoyance at not being played as far forward as he did, he still does as he's told. He is a team player. And I think James Ward Prowse is the ultimate team player. So he's got all of that. Plus, he's going to be able to offer some assists. He's going to be able to offer some goals. And I guess that's no bad thing, really. And I do want to welcome him to West Ham. I think this is really, really important for me. I think you can have your favourite signings, but I think the moment they sign for West Ham, for me, I just welcome aboard, and I really, really hope he does well. I wouldn't, I'd hate to think he was signing for a club and then he would be hearing, me on YouTube saying, "Oh, I don't want him here," or anything like that. Honestly, I welcome him to West Ham. I look forward to seeing his first goal and the set plays and everything else for that matter. It does give me a concern with the pace in the team, it has to be said. We are desperately going to need to buy some pace. If this is what we're doing, if we're going down the road of Alvarez and we're going down the road of James Ward Prowse and Harry Maguire, we better be buying some bloody fast players, that's for sure. However, you can see what David Moyes is going to try and do here. We're going to try and be that set-piece team again. And we're going to be bloody dangerous at it. There's no doubt about it at all. If James Ward Prowse can be taking our corners and taking our free kicks, you're not going to want to concede a corner against West Ham. And for that, I can find some level of excitement to see him lining up for a free kick. That's going to be really, really good. So, I guess from that aspect, but it's tinged with this whole Lucas Paqueta story, which is not really good. I think what this does is, I'm assuming this puts to bed any talk of Scott McTominay. I don't know. That story could progress a little bit today. We just don't know about that. I think the thing is, when a lot of us were factoring in what we thought about the composition of West Ham's midfield next season, we were maybe thinking, oh, okay, perhaps it's obviously Alvarez, who will be announced today, I'm pretty sure. And then we've got maybe Scott McTominay was in there, and then we would factor in Lucas Paqueta. Well, we can't really do that anymore. So what about, actually, if we got rid of Paqueta and it's actually Scott McTominay and Alvarez and, of course, James Ward Prowse? It lacks a bit of sparkle for me. I've got to say, it lacks a bit of sparkle. I would still want that sort of exciting player and that's why it's really, really hard. I think it's really hard to be massively upbeat about everything that's happening with West Ham at the moment. If West Ham weren't hemorrhaging these players and we were just adding James Ward Prowse to the squad, I'm thinking, okay, great, good. This would give us an extra dynamic from set pieces and all that stuff. Some leadership. We've lost some leadership from the club, but it's not great. It's not great. Do I see a situation? I'm sure we all do, where we're lining up for corners and you can imagine it, can't you? Goal Harry Maguire, assisted by James Ward Prowse. And you know what? At the end of the day, what do we want? We want West Ham to win, we want West Ham to score goals, and that would be absolutely great. But I cannot help but be concerned about the vibrancy of the team and the pace of the team. We are slow. We are a slow team. And I often find myself in transfer windows wondering when it's going to be addressed. And it never seems to be addressed. And it really must do. This cannot carry on like this, because I just don't think the slow players suit our counter-attacking style. If what we want to do is be a set-piece team, do I think Ward Prowse will suit that style? Absolutely. Maguire, absolutely. Counter-attacking, where's the pace? It just doesn't make any sense. So I can only assume that we're going to be doing something along those lines, that we're going to be trying to inject some pace into the team. Hopefully that sort of news gets leaked later on today. I'm sort of conscious, a little bit negative with the video, but, with James Ward Prowse, it's a new signing coming in, and that's great, and we will be, we'll certainly benefit from some of his qualities, but it is hard. I can't be on my own. It is hard when you see these players leaving. When you look back to the excitement of last season, we still had Declan Rice. Paqueta just signed for 50 million. We'd signed Scamacca for 35 million. It ain't so great now. Hopefully there's some more news to lift us later on in the day. I'm pretty sure there will be. But even if they get these deals over the line, Ward Prowse looks like it's happening. Alvarez looks like it's happening. Maguire's looking increasingly more likely. Okay, get those out. And then can we buy some exciting players, please, and some pace? Anyway, I'll deal with all that later. I said it earlier. I'll say it now. This will not be the last time I upload today, because things are happening very, very quickly.